required to have a homeless liaison. That's how prevalent this is everywhere in the country. Contact a homeless liaison and just ask them how many homeless children. It will blow your mind how many homeless children there are right in your school district, wherever you are. There are these kinds of needs, and these are needs that we can raise the awareness of within our churches, within our community, and they are needs that people want to support. They are the needs of, including just slavery. Maybe some of you have heard or you've gone to some of these, or sexual exploitation. It's amazing how prevalent that is. We have handled, I think, 5 cases in the last year of sex trafficking or domestic slavery trafficking, because it happens here. That's in this area. 2 of those were from Wheaton, Illinois, the Billy Graham Center, the great Mecca, used to be of the Midwest, and in the shadows are women who are being brought here as sex slaves, women who are being brought here as domestic slaves, and they need people to intervene and make a significant difference. And then get praying. We need to pray. One of the things I told you, the #1 cause of poverty in this country is the breakup of the family. Let's pray against it. We don't have to bemoan it. We can actually do something proactive. We can get engaged with peacemaker ministries and try to encourage and do seminars and raise awareness. We can get involved in people's lives. We do, and we're actually the only legal aid in the country that I'm aware of that does mediation also. Christian conciliation is part of our services. And so Kevin and Don, they come into our offices. They were referred by the court, actually, even though they were active in their church. The church had given up on them because they were fighting, a lot of fighting. And when they came in, they just couldn't even sit down at a table. They would interrupt each other. And so we have these in our offices. We go, to get them to stop. We say, hey, you want to make each other black and blue? Then use these. Stop interrupting each other. Stop doing these other things, and then read. This says, what causes you to swat at one another? Isn't it the desires that battle within you? Read what the Bible says in James 4. And we'll go through the process. And through a process, we have a male and female that come alongside them. And through that process, there can be reconciliation. And Kevin and Dawn are now many years very happily married after being reconciled. And every year we get at Christmas the wonderful card that shows a growing family that's intact instead of another divorce statistic that's out there. And we can do that as lawyers. We can intervene. We can get engaged. But most of all, we need to get praying. And we need to give hope. As I said, a lot of information. We just need to educate and excite people and empower them to get involved. So we do a lot of outreach and education in the community. Okay, so what's stopping us? You remember you guys are all too young, John, you're not. Remember Pogo? We have met the enemy and he is us. What really is stopping us? I think it's probably us. Why don't we? You know, there's more than 1 million lawyers, that's the number in the U.S. Even that's 2007, so that's a little old, but that's the most current we got. There's less than 20 full-time Christian legal aid attorneys in the country. Now, I don't mean by that, I have friends in Legal Services Corporation who I know are Christian. I'm not saying that. I'm saying within a Christian legal aid program, there are less than 20 full-time attorneys. And we need to overcome our barriers. There's less than 1,000 volunteering today across the country. And there should be significantly more volunteering, even just a few hours. Our average lawyer gives less than 1/2 of their time to help the poor for legal aid. That's based on Illinois statistics, but I doubt that we're any different or unique than anywhere else in the country, as people report their pro bono hours. And the average lawyer gives only $276 to help the poor for legal aid, and that is an American Bar Association statistic. So we can do a lot better in getting engaged. The need for advocates, of course, grows daily. Right now there's 47 groups across the country, Dallas, Oklahoma, and in other places. There is a place in Los Angeles, but that's just a drop in the bucket. And John, Rob, and I are praying that there will be 1,000 organizations across this country. I believe that can happen. So let's talk a little bit. Let's work to remove the woodpeckers. You ever think about that too, of everything? What do you do with the woodpeckers on that boat? But we don't want justice to sink, right? So let's remove the woodpeckers that stop us from doing what God's calling us to do. That's our great challenge, of course. So I even want to just find out, what do you think of some of the barriers? What stops people from getting engaged?
Not feeling like they're educated enough on issues that will come to their office.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good one.
Previous bad experiences with dealing with court. Some of them are mentally ill, and it can be challenging. So if you've had a bad experience, you are less likely to go back.
I think a lot of lawyers think the poor deserve their situation, don't really want to help them. This is some of the things I've been hearing from my own partners.
I heard at least two, that's good.
Maybe just too busy or too much on the plate.
It's a common one, I think.
I'd say, you know, might relate to debt, but finances, I mean, in a sense, lawyers, a lot of lawyers can't imagine doing work for free for any reason. Do you have a statistic on the percentage of lawyers who do, even the lawyers who work at law firms and all, just total percentage of lawyers who do some pro bono work? Have you seen any statistic on that? I haven't.
There's no national, it'd be state by state, and I don't know in terms of like an overall percentage, but I do know that of all the time, aggregate time reported, it's less than 0.5%.
Yeah,
It's not even close to that.
Yeah.
Now, it relates to many of these things. I think all of these things are involved with different people.
I think it's timing your pressure for billable hours. I mean,
Yeah, that's a great one. Right? Didn't you say that you couldn't do it with one of your employers, right?
That's right.
If I have to hit, you know, my billable hours in first year into something, it's gonna take me 4 times the amount of time to do anything. Only so many hours in a day, you gotta sleep in.
Not much information.
Yeah, not at all.
One of the firms I worked at actually allowed us to count billable hours, pro bono hours toward our billable hours.
Oh, wow.
Which
And
I
then a
thought was
lot of states
incredible,
don't
yeah.
require pro bono anymore. It's overlooked. It's like, yeah, we encourage it, but how are you really encouraging it? By telling us when we take the bar that we're encouraged to do it? Like, after that, they don't tell you anything else about it.
I'd also add to the list conflicts. That's something that I've been approached about in trying to start this up is, you know, I work for insurance companies now, so my risk of running into people who will have an issue with an insurance company is very high. And that's a concern of mine, is running into a conflict with a former client.
You know, in Philadelphia, most of the lawyers have moved out of the city, and most of the poor, at least that we minister to, are in the city. So there's this whole anti-Philadelphia fear that the suburban lawyers
Oh,
have.
sure.
It kind of goes against what you've been saying, but maybe every city is a little bit different. So it's hard to get the suburban lawyers to come into the city. They're afraid of it. They feel uncomfortable. Even the city, they'll handle something in their own county court system, but the idea of handling something at City Hall, forget it. It's just a bad place to go. They're afraid of it.
Okay, yeah. See, I think those are all very good, and we need to be aware of that ourselves, as of course we're going, but if we're going to encourage others that not educated enough. There are absolute trainings. There are lots of materials in every state, always wonderful materials to help guide through. And what I've always told an attorney is, do you honestly believe that you know less than a pro se person walking into your office? They're so overwhelmed, they don't even understand the system. It's a foreign world to them, literally a foreign territory. You walk into a courthouse, it's like walking into foreign soil, because everything is done differently, they speak differently, they act differently, they dress differently. Everybody's just so different. And they all know what's going on. All the lawyers, they all talk to each other, judges and everything. But if you're the person, just watch people sometime in court. It's very overwhelming, very difficult for them. And you can help them just by providing them information. Just like they saw in the video, lots of us that just wanted to know. just knowing you lifted is such a high burden. There's huge value in that. We undervalue that because we think that we have to know the end. And we have to know all these steps, and we'll give them all the great advice that's going to give them the best tools to get there. That's not what they're thinking. They just want to know that it's going to be okay, that they have some information, or they have some frame now to be able to move forward. And that's huge. So we just have to help people overcome that. And what I tell attorneys all the time, too, is that now over 20,000 clients, we get cards every day, or letters back from clients, the 2 surveys from clients, and in all of those, never ever once have I had somebody write back and say, thank you for your legal brilliance. I just haven't, not once. But do I get every single day? In fact, I was going to read one, but literally every single day I just got even an email while here on thank you for your compassion, thank you for your prayers, thank you for your concern every day, because that's what makes the difference to the client. So that's huge. Debt and finances, these are things we have to trust to God. Right? That's a faith issue. Are we going to definitely trust God to provide? Debt is a big thing. There are a lot of wonderful programs for getting engaged in pro bono, that they'll pay off part of the school debt, or that they'll provide fellowships. So that's possible when you're older and you want to make that leap. That's definitely a faith leap. Previous bad experiences, these are good things to talk about too. That's one way I think personally you can serve attorneys and come alongside them. We won't refer out those kinds of cases because we know that would be difficult. I used to volunteer all the time for the Legal Services Corporation, and I'd get those cases. They just sent them to me. Didn't even ask, they just sent them to me. And I'll admit, I didn't always have a good experience. I didn't like that. But by being able to filter through and being able to have somebody help you do that, it can be a very, very good experience. And when you start getting these kinds of cards, start getting these kinds of thank yous that frankly you don't even get in private practice most of the time, it really is significant. The poor deserving, that's a good Bible study, of course, to go through, more than anything else, because I get that overcome. Too busy, that's, come alongside people, recognizing, honestly, sometimes there are seasons of life. And we respect our attorneys when they have seasons of life. Sometimes that's just true. You can't, and if you expect too much of yourself, you're just going to wind up in the depression seminar that we had over here, right? Because honestly, it's just going to be too much. It will overwhelm. So it's okay. We need to give ourselves some grace too, that there are seasons of life when it is busy. Then when those seasons change, then get involved. It's not always, life isn't always that way, or if it is always that way, then you really honestly need to reevaluate, because nobody can live that way. Pressure for billable hours, that's very true, and that's working with employers, and maybe you need to change a job. John ultimately changed jobs. I don't know, because that's very real and that's true. Conflicts are things that you just need a good system in place, which we do with all of our attorneys, so they know we have people in advance so we can check that. We have more than one attorney, so if there's a conflict with one, somebody else can meet with the client. Those sort of things, because those are very real issues too. In suburban going into the urban, that's an issue. Hopefully once they do it once and they realize, wow, everybody wasn't bugging me, everybody wasn't carrying guns, then maybe they'll realize, hey, this is okay. I don't know. That's certainly something to pray through too. Okay, well, the most important thing that I have learned over the years of doing this and serving so many is that you just cannot do this in your own power. You will burn out quickly. I've had good friends over the years who have just burned out in this. They just have, because they honestly were trying to do too much themselves. And you can't do it. You'll never be strong enough. You'll never, honestly, know all the answers. You learn to get comfortable. I don't know all of the answers for everybody who walks through our door, but I know that there is a God who loves every person who walks through my door, and has a plan for their life, and I can share that plan with them. And along the way, I'll figure out answers. I'll figure out ways to guide and direct them. I can do that as a lawyer just as you can. You don't have to know all the answers, but to be available and to be there, I think is huge. And we want to be praying. So truly, I want to take a few minutes. Here's what they have, just 5 minutes. I really want you to individually pray. Which of these or something else is what's prohibiting you from moving forward? What fear do you have for getting involved? What barrier might be preventing you? Because it's great you come to these conferences, you get all excited, But then sometimes you go home and busyness,